So our next guest, quad rugby player,
Hi.
got the gun show going, Mr. James Saw here.
Slim jacket.
Love it. How you doing, James?
Good. How are you?
I am wonderful. So donatecaf.com. That's pretty cool because you're the guy who goes out and gets all of our grants.
I definitely play a part in that. So I work at CAF.
Yes.
I work in business development, for those who don't know. And I mostly do grant writing, but I try my best to kind of help out with the sponsorship and partnerships with creating content that's appealing and
Yes.
can really make a case for what we do here as an organization and help build up our community and make it stronger in every sense of that word.
What do we do here? Pitch
So,
me.
Pitch you. Well, Bob, I feel like it should be the other way around, seeing as you're the founder. But so the Challenge Athletes Foundation provides...
Look at that. People bashing you from the
Thanks.
outside.
Really-
I love it.
So we provide grants to fund adaptive sports for adaptive athletes, so they can go pursue things like, equipment is expensive.
Right.
So being able to have the means to go out and to play and participate in sports, not only does it give a chance for them to reintegrate into the community, but a lot of those who feel different or feel, at post-tragedy that
Right.
they're no longer the same, get an opportunity to go out and be successful in something as basic and as streamlined as, you score your first basket, or
Right.
you win your first race, or the first time you put the running leg on, and you can actually feel like hey, I can run again. It doesn't
Sure.
feel that clunky. And once you find that success, it kind of snowballs into, okay, great, what else can I do with my life? And, some people are lifers, and Eric McElveny is a great athlete. He was here earlier, and he's been able to build a great career off of his race resume.
Right.
And for a lot of people, that's incredible. But for some others, it might just be giving them that little spur, that little push to, get off your couch, get out of your bed, go meet other people, see what you can do. And, ideally, I think hopefully in all our hearts, we really hope that translates to not just success on the court or
But in
on the
life,
race
yeah.
course, but in life as well. And oftentimes that is the confidence that a lot of people with physical disabilities need to really get out there.
What were your sports before you were injured?
I dabbled in football and wrestling. Mostly, was mostly a gym rat. I was definitely in lifting for the aesthetic part more than the athletic part. But yeah, I ran, I biked. It wasn't like anything to write home about.
Recreational.
I just like staying in shape mostly. So
Toughest part after you became a quadriplegic? What was the toughest?
toughest part. I think it's an amalgamation of a lot of things. I think the biggest one for me personally was just dealing with the difference in image. Truthfully,
From the outside or personal?
personal. From the outside is actually pretty nice because I don't think I've ever had anyone really be like, hey, you're in a wheelchair, I'm going to be mean to you for the next 20 minutes, That doesn't really happen. Like, most people are like, oh, hey, can I get the door for you? Can I help you out?
Yeah.
So on and so forth. So, in general, people are pretty altruistic and nice, but,
They are, yeah.
oftentimes it's yourself, it's intrinsic, where you look in the mirror and you're like, oh crap, how many people are going to look at me today? How many
Yes.
people are going to think this or that? And after a while, you realize, everyone's just kind of doing their own thing, and the only time they really pay attention is to help. So I think internally, after accident, after getting out of the hospital, finding that opportunity to let people help you and, let people see the best in not only yourself, but, do the best for them too. The only time they notice is when they want to be helpful.
Right.
And, that's a pretty neat thing.
It is a neat
So, I think people really underestimate the good nature of their community, and personally, you kind of have to let other people engage in that. It's like being really short or tall or ugly. It's not like, oh man, everyone's going to talk about how short or tall I am or how ugly I am or I'm in a wheelchair. It's like, no, that doesn't happen. Go out, live your life, be part of the community. Let people only care about the good things, and you'll find out that there's a lot of good things out there,
When did you first get introduced to wheelchair rugby, which quad rugby, which is obviously your passion?
So I got introduced pretty early, which was fortunate. When I was still in the hospital, my physical therapist showed me a documentary called Murder Ball.
Yes.
And from the outside in, you're like, okay, that's a pretty interesting name for a sport too. And the long story short is Murder Ball eventually became wheelchair rugby when they realized that, like no corporate sponsor is going to
Sponsor murder ball.
Yeah,
Yay!
especially if you already broke your neck once.
Right.
So I watched this movie. It's about quadriplegics, people in wheelchairs with impairment in all four limbs, and they're playing this Mad Max sport. I don't know if you can see my
we
you can see part
your
of my
chair.
rugby chair, right?
Yeah.
So it's built like a mini self-propelled tank, and you see these guys crashing into each other and bashing each other, and they're fast and they're strong, and they kind of have this no nonsense, independent attitude. And for me personally, at the time, having lost so much, it really seemed like a very positive and
Yes.
strong and aggressive outlet to kind of regain me, so to speak, to get myself back. And so that was the first step. And over the next few months, getting out of the hospital, I lived with my brother for a few months, my brother and my parents, and that's how I ended up in San Diego. But I got plugged into the wheelchair rugby team here, and through them, one of the other guys lent me his old chair, and I was absolutely awful, couldn't do anything, but it felt awesome, to be able to do there and do like anything but kind of just sit in a bed and feel sorry for yourself. And it really, really did open up the door for, how my perspective of me changed. And, through that, one of my teammates, his wife at the time was working at CAF.
Yes.
So that's how I got plugged in, and he offered to be my mentor through Project Next. And it just kind of went off from there, and it's been a pretty good time.
So take me through this guy. Okay,
All
I mean,
right,
again,
so-
what would something like this cost for somebody who's
This chair was about $6,000.
and insurance would not cover that?
No, insurance doesn't. I mean, this is on top of the fact, like, you can't really write them a letter. So, hey, I need a recreational chair. By the way, I'm going to be trying my best to, break it. So
And-
that, and like,
And break the other person
exactly
in their chair. Yeah.
Exactly. And they already, are apprehensive about, other sports too. Cause like, well, that's not a necessity, we'll pay for your day chair. You need that to get around, et cetera, et cetera. But, something like this, no, this is a luxury. You don't need it. But, like, realistically, there is that slice of life, that part of life that, you need to feel enriched when you're awake. You need to feel
special about
you need to feel
yourself.
that you have a
Absolutely.
livelihood.
Yeah.
There's a reason why you're awake. And for people with permanent physical disabilities, sometimes you need to look at other outlets or other tools to help you get there.
Right.
And for us, it's chairs, and
This particular chair, the fact it has to be custom to you, right? It has to fit
absolutely.
you perfectly.
And the thing is, the chair doesn't just open up an outlet to like, hey, I have a chair, I can play now. But it really opens you up to that community. And it's one thing to have your doctor, your nurse, or your therapist teach you, what can or can't you do. And, at the end of the day, the patient in their head is like, well, great, you can go back to your family able-bodied and you won't, give a care. But for me, this is the rest of my life. But all of a sudden, you're with all these other guys and like, come on, get over it. You can do it. And not only do you get this chair to participate for health reasons, build up your strength and your independence, you have guys kind of teaching you how to apply that. The first time I learned to drive from another guy in a wheelchair, I learned how to even get in and out of the car by myself from another guy in a wheelchair.
Yeah.
And, just having that camaraderie and, that success through solidarity and support through solidarity, it really does go leagues and miles beyond just, here's funding for a very expensive piece of equipment.
Well, and it's also a little bit of tough love too, right?
Yeah,
you
it's
get
definitely-
a little bit of abuse from your fellow guys. This probably goes
it's
a long
definitely
way.
Tough love is nice too, because everyone thinks you're made of glass once you get hurt, not just physically but emotionally too.
That's a great
and,
line. Yeah.
It's not the physical babying that really gets people. Sometimes it's the emotional, mental babying too. We're like, oh, I can do that for you. I can take care of that. But I was like, you can do that yourself too.
Right.
And realistically, getting over that barrier allows you, it's one step closer to being yourself again, and it's one step closer for, you to be able to give back too.
When you're doing, you're obviously looking for grants for CAF all the time, and part of your pitch has to be, hey, I've lived it. I know how important this chair is, and how important it is to get travel expenses, training expenses. Does that come into when you are reaching out to other groups?
Absolutely. And the greatest thing about that is, I'm one person, and over CAF's whole history, and I know this sounds kind of pitchy, but
It is.
We've helped over 13,000 athletes.
Yes.
And raised money so that all of them have a story like this, where I was once broken, I was once down, I once didn't know any better, but now I do, and see how much I'm doing. So yeah, absolutely. It's great to be able to not only, prove there's a need, but to prove how far we can take that need, and really evolve, capitalize on that personally in someone's life to make it better. Whether someone like me who was just kind of like a dumb college student, like some of these kids who are like 4 or 5 years old, like
I know.
recess comes along, it's like, all right, why don't you just like sit against the wall, and oh, here's a ball, bounce it against the wall, and that's the best case scenario. And all of a sudden you're getting all these kids basketball chairs and running legs. They can go out and do their own thing, and it
all
changes.
Of a
sudden
sudden
the whole life changes,
and
right?
it changes everything. I think there's a certain point, and you've probably seen it, when you get injured, your parents and your friends really can't move on until they feel that you're okay.
Yeah.
Right? You sort of are the barometer for your inner circle, right?
Sure. And I think the biggest thing too with people who earn their disabilities from a traumatic accident is you realize that it's not just you that's affected. Everyone around you is affected.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's almost worse than yourself. I didn't have to be awake for any of the surgeries that really, had my life on the line, but my parents and my friends did.
Yes.
And, there's a lot of things that, of course I had to figure out internally, but you realize how many people really have a stake in who you are as a person. And it does feel good now in hindsight, being able to look back and, accepting that I've overcome that obstacle and seeing other people who've overcome that obstacle and have really been able to give that peace of mind back to their family as well.
I love that. Favorite moment from wheelchair rugby?
Favorite moment from wheelchair rugby? I don't know. That's a tough one. I think it's really more of the journey that really gets me.
Yes.
And I was recently at SDSU with a couple of my teammates, and they asked the same question. I really didn't know what to say, but one of my buddies goes, it's really not a specific moment I can pick up, but it's really the journey of starting out, of being utterly, completely crappy in the chair, but having a blast,
yes.
to getting
Hitting
better,
other people,
interacting with your teammates, and winning games together, even losing games together, and being able to do that as a team, it's a good feeling. So I just think the whole journey for me so far has been man, that's a real cop-out answer, isn't it?
No, the journey has been
the whole journey has been great.
Yeah, it's hard to pick out one moment.
Yeah, I've had a lot of fun.
And I know this year you were trying to make the team to go to the Paralympics.
Right. So I was invited to try out for the 2016 team for Rio. I got cut. So I mean,
but that's
realistically,
part of life, right?
no, it's part of life, and it is a good feeling to have someone really hold you to that high standard. We're all in wheelchairs. Most of us have suffered the same traumatic injury, and all of a sudden you go and everyone's ready to play. Coach is ready to coach. Coach is ready to play. Coach is like, hey, you got cut because you're not good enough. That's a good feeling. People, despite your circumstance and what you have, there's still people out there who have nothing but the highest expectations for you, and I think that's a huge part of what makes people.
Yes.
So that was great. I got invited back for 2017. So
sweet.
Yeah, early January I'll be going back, hopefully with a little better results than last time.
What did they tell you needed to work on? What did you just more time in the chair, more time, more experience?
I'm definitely on the newer end. So hopefully each time I go back and be a little better and see how that goes.
Is it one of those things where there's camaraderie there because you're all facing very similar challenges? Or is it pretty cutthroat in terms of trying to make the team?
I think camaraderie is the bigger one. I haven't seen too much like cutthroat attitude.
Yeah.
And
you're all in it together.
You're all in it together. I mean, realistically, it's a sport, right? The people who are good enough make it, and the people who aren't get cut.
Which is pretty nice. It's pretty clear cut.
Yeah, I don't think there's any like emotional or dramatic ties to it. It's a sport, and at the end of the day, like we all have our club teams at home. We all play to each other plenty during the season.
Right.
So,
how important was sport for you coming off of your injury?
I think it was a lot more important than I thought it was. Like I said before, I was more of like a rec athlete.
Right.
It was more like a secondary or even tertiary hobby, but I would say that it really did play a huge part in saving my life.
Yeah.
And, it's not just the physical aspect, the health aspect, all your typical standard stories, but when you suffer a huge permanent physical setback, there's really no going around it. This is who I am now.
Right.
And when you suffer such a big physical setback, but then all of a sudden get such a physical avenue to succeed, it's not like saying, oh, you got hurt, but hey, you can still do this or that. You can be a teacher. You can get a job. Like, none of that has anything to relate with your injury. It's saying, despite what you've lost physically, you can succeed in other things. But then when you meet adaptive sport, it's saying, in the face of your physical disability, you can take that and turn that into your own success. For those who've gone to Rio and gone to the Paralympics or big games, that opportunity opened to them because they got hurt, not because of anything else. And I think it really
good point.
It really is one step further than the standard rising up to succeed story, when you can take what's not necessarily the best hand dealt to you and, turn that into the basis of you being successful. And for me personally, I would love to make the national team at some point, and that would be great, and that can add to the story. But like right now, at this moment in time, I've been able to use my disability to get connected with others like me and to be able to serve that community, whether it's working here at CAF or being out part of the team. And
yes,
for me, that has held so much value and so much importance, whether I've been on the receiving or the giving end of that. And for me, because of that reason, sport is just utterly and completely monumentally critical to who I am as a person today.
Speaking of that, we've got people out there watching who are with corporations, and if you were pitching them on why they should be supporting,
God, that's going to get a little campy, huh?
We want them to be sending corporate grants our way. Why?
I think it really does. Gosh, do I go campier here? Or
yeah.
Well, I think realistically, it just builds a stronger community. I mean, for me,
yes,
getting sport was fun, and it was great getting back in shape, but it got me out of the house too. It taught me to drive, and once you can drive and move around independently, it really opens up other doors. And for a lot of people, getting this first chance to get out and be successful, it does translate into a career. I have countless teammates who, finally getting off the couch, getting off medication, enrolling for school again,
right,
or having the confidence to go out and apply for a job. And I think that outside of just sport, it really reintegrates people into the community to really contribute outside of just being a consumer, but giving back as an employee too, or a student. And so this is where it starts. The chair is where it starts.
Exactly.
But overall, giving that corporate support, it strengthens everyone in the community. Not just emotionally, mentally, or physically, but fiscally or in terms of education and whatnot.
Yes.
Like every single aspect of the community is has the potential to be improved.
Love that, James. We have some questions. Yes.
Oh God, we have questions.
We got some questions from social media, James.
Oh.
We have a few people just saying hello. Maureen saying, Bob Babbitt, yes, thank you for all you have done for a lifetime. Frank Arduino says, CAF gave me life. Rich Cruz, one of our photographers, he's watching. He says, this is great. I love hearing everyone's story. Patty, James is a great spokesperson.
That's my mom.
Danielle Edmondson,
Michelle's
thank you
mom.
for everything you do at CAF. And then Alexander from the Kilele Foundation Kenya says, we are watching. We thank CA Africa team and Beth Sianden, who came to East Africa and support Kilele Foundation Kenya Challenge athletes.
Wow.
Then we have a question, James.
Yes.
We hear you're doing the rock and roll marathon. Are you excited for that, and how are you training for that?
We'll see how it goes.
First time in a race.
So I'm kind of banking off the fact, it's going to be my first time in the racing chair. I've agreed and decided that it would be a nice, appropriate cross-training challenge to try to do a half marathon. I've never been in a racing chair, so it should be interesting is a good word. And my approach and my strategy is, if somebody takes a still frame picture and I make it look like I'm pushing really fast,
yes,
maybe that's all people will remember, so it'll look good.
I think if you bring this,
I think
you bring your own chair.
That's a really heavy chair.
Yeah, you can take some of those guys out though.
I've done a couple 5Ks in my rugby chair, and afterwards I've never been more aware of how heavy it is. So I think I'm fine with trying the road racer. We'll see how it goes.
Love it.
Yeah. Go for it, right?
Exactly. James Sa has been our guest. Visit donatecaf.com. Today only, our longtime partner, Aspen Medical Products, will match every donation dollar for dollar. Huge thank you to Jeff Garth and Dan Williamson.